So you're our Marvel expert now.
Yeah, just call me Cerebro.
Oh, interesting. All right, Cerebro. I'm going to just hit you with questions. We'll see if you can answer them now.
Bring them.
Okay. My first burning question is, what are those, the post-credit sequence? The silver ball shows up, sucks David in. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so interestingly, those silver balls do show up. They do show up in what is called X-Men Legacy. It is the story. It is the only story where they really focus on just Legion himself and his own. He has his own dedicated series essentially. And in X-Men Legacy, David encounters these silver balls, but these silver balls don't have the same Pokeball zapping powers.
Okay.
Right? He's not sucked into them. These balls are essentially just drones to send him a message. These drones in the comic book series belong to a intergalactic police force. And
wait, so you're telling me aliens show up in season 2? That's where we're going with this?
I don't think so. And the reason why I say that is because, one, I just think that there's just so much that the writers and Noah Hawley can do with just expanding that universe of mutants, generally speaking.
Okay.
Because we don't know that much about that world that they're
space. We don't need any Guardians.
Yeah, no Guardians need to come in. And secondly, I also read I think I read an interview online, either from the AV Club or another publisher, where they ask Noah, hey, so what's up with Equinox, the thing that the Division 3 commander was threatening to send in.
Send in the Equinox, yeah.
Right. And he said, in response to that, he said, oh yeah, you just make sure to check out the post-credit scenes.
Okay. So that's a lot of evidence, add 1 and 1 and get 3.
Division 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I doubt it. I doubt no space aliens, probably.
Okay. So I think it's Division 3. I think that kind of matches what I would guess too.
Yeah, there is actually another reference to these silver balls in X-Men Evolution, the cartoon series, and in that series, Magneto uses these giant silver balls to trap different X-Men. He doesn't trap Legion or anything, and these are huge humanoid-sized balls.
Okay, but it seems like there's some type of mashup going on there. They're drawing inspiration from these different series.
I think that's what's happening. Yeah, that's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next question is about the name Legion. Because in the show, I'm guessing you talk about David as Legion, kind of using that interchangeably, but in the show, it's just David. There's a lot of David.
Yeah, so what is Legion? What is that referring to? He, in the comics, David, throughout pretty much every single arc, he is a mutant that is struggling with literally hundreds of different personalities in his head. These personalities manifest as different characters, different powers. He's also diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. That's his mental illness diagnosis, which is very different than the schizophrenia that's mentioned.
In the show, because that involves hearing voices and not different personalities. And then he's able to, he doesn't really have schizophrenia. It's just his telepathy gone wild, and then he turns the volume down. That's the end of that.
Right. So that's definitely not the case in the comics. In the comics, he is the whole character. All his issues stem from the fact that he can't control these different characters in his mind, and it's all about his struggle to do that. And there's also some weird stuff too, where different characters allow him to access different powers. So telepathy and telekinesis is shown in the show, but in the comics, he also, can light things on fire. He can travel in time. He's literally like a god.
That kind of matches, the fire in the first episode. Maybe that was like to throw comic readers off. They're like, oh my god, he's got another power, but it's...
that's a good point. It's a good catch, because we never really actually find out who did that.
Yeah,
right?
nobody has that power. It's someone that we know of.
Right. He's just multiple personalities, and the Legion. Interesting fun fact is that in the comic, the Legion name for comic book series originally that originally came from a biblical reference when Jesus is addressing a possessed man possessed by a demon, and the demon / man says to Jesus, I am legion, for I am many.
Okay. Well, actually, that kind of makes the show more faithful to the Bible. Maybe you can make this case that because he's in the comics, he's got these multiple personalities, but in the show, he's possessed by a demon that has many different faces. It's got angriest boy, the king, Lenny, Benny, etc.
Right, yeah, no, absolutely. And they didn't have to. They could have just showed just the scary demon with yellow eyes, but they chose to show all these different manifestations of that. So maybe that means something more than we know right now, or maybe that's just a reference to the original comic book origin. We'll see.
Cool.
We'll see.
And speaking of demon, Mr. Farouk,
the Shadow King.
The Shadow King. Is he the big bad in the comics, or is that something they made up for the show?
He is a big bad, and he has essentially the same powers. He possesses people, is a powerful telepath. What is interesting, though, is that in the comics, there is a story arc in Uncanny X-Men called the Muir Island Saga, and in this arc, the Shadow King actually does possess David Haller, a Legion, but Legion in this case is a grown-up Legion. He's not a little baby, and he's part of the X-Men. But while possessing David, he actually fights Charles Xavier in the astral plane.
Oh, okay. There's a little mashup timeline.
Yes, another sort of mashup
similarities there. Yes, that he fought someone in the astral plane. Well, actually, you're not the only one who can do research.
Okay.
Although I didn't read all the comics. I did a little Googling. That there's speculation that David's father is Charles Xavier, and it's kind of circumstantial. There's he's a powerful telepath, telekinesis, whatever. There's a bald dude on the chalkboard. And then there is this wheel that shows up with an X on it, and they think it's Professor X's wheelchair wheel, although we've seen this X iconography elsewhere, namely Summerlin has the window with the X on it, so it may not refer to Professor X.
Right. So my short answer to that is the theorists are probably right on this count, because it is unequivocal in the comic books that David is the son of Professor Xavier. And not only is he the son of Professor Xavier, pretty much the driving motivation of David Haller / Legion in the comics is derived from his relationship and lack of relationship with Professor X. Mainly delving into the fact that because he can't control his powers, he's presented as a bit of an antagonist a lot of times because he's just causing so much trouble in the world. And it's really hard for him. He has a conflict between, being this world breaker in the comic books universe with the fact that his dad, was very peaceful, was a mythical mutant of his own, and he wants to live up to his father's legacy but cannot because he can't control his powers. So that relationship with his father is critical in the comics.
But I don't know how much they can go into that with the show, because the universe of the show, which doesn't match any extended universe elsewhere or any other canon, that there's no room for famous mutants. When David's had powers, right, his whole life, but then they think he's insane, and that points to a world where people don't know that people are mutants. Same thing with Sid. They think she can't be touched. I don't know, I don't see how Charles Xavier fits in there.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
Yeah,
it's a really.
There's nothing in the history. We go through the '60s and we're like 20 or 30 years after that, and there was no mutant uprising or whatever, nothing on TV.
Yeah, I think at this point, I think we can only just speculate that maybe Summerland is a precursor to Charles Xavier and his, X Academy. Mm-hmm. Maybe they plan on just keeping it totally separate.
Well, it is true that Summerland is getting mutants and D3 is like scooping up mutants. There's no academy yet. Maybe that'll come.
Right. Maybe. It's hard to say. I am very interested though to see. I'm excited to see Professor X come into play at some point. Whether maybe it's not season 2, but season 3, just because there's just so much story. There's so much fertile earth that they can grow, like these really interesting story arcs with regard to his father. There's a lot of material there, and they have not touched any of that at all, which I find fascinating, and I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with that.
Okay, that's a good argument that there's a lot of fertile ground. Although, I mean, they could just throw it all away and just have season 2 be Aubrey Plaza and Jermaine Clement hanging out, and I would watch the shit out of that.
That would be excellent and amazing, and I would also read the comic book version of that as well.
Okay, yeah. And then maybe Xavier shows up and he's just like sitting there and they're like, oh, you are not the father. And then that's it. They just, screw you guys. This is where we're going with this. Somebody else.
Yeah, that would be interesting too. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah, we'll see. That last one's probably not the truth.